Good evening. Let us pray. As we look in the rearview mirror across the years in which we've come, we pause to say thank you. Give us the sensitivity to realize that Gary is holy ground. Bless those who stood the sunshine, the storms, and the rain to be here tonight, holding on, hoping against hope to see morning come. We thank you in a special way for Rich Gordon Hatcher. We're using him in an unusual way as an instrument of your peace and justice. Thank you for empowering him to be a visionary. Thank you for allowing us to be in this place tonight, one of his visions. Bless us individually and collectively. Let something happen tonight. Some word expressed, some thought, some music, some song. Make us different when we leave tonight than before we came. Amen. I am delighted to be here tonight. I want to thank Dean Lyon for such a stirring, truth-filled, shattering address to get our attention today. We are so full of happiness and joy without content. Here, cut it as it is, gives me a special sense of joy. I want to thank some of the friends we had tonight, Sister Arlene and you, Lonnie, Sister Lavelle, and friends with whom I've worked across the years here in Gary. Tonight I miss Lou Drinker and Rudy Clay in such a way. I had a challenge tonight because I had a certain desire. Tonight is our 50th anniversary of A&T as our homecoming event tonight. It's not just the 50th anniversary, but Gladys Knight is performing. I wanted to go and see Gladys tonight in Greensboro, but I couldn't say no to Richard. I wanted to be at our football game tomorrow, but I couldn't say no, and I feel tonight I made the right decision to be among you again. You that don't have the nerve to wear loud pink ties. With tomorrow at Rainbow Push, we're having Breast Cancer Awareness Day, bringing together breast cancer victims, male and female, and doctors. Because true to the form of Dr. Lyons' address tonight, Black women are more likely to die from breast cancer. And Black men, John Stan. John is our photographer. John has had breast cancer. Breast cancer is not just about women and sexuality. It's a far more profound medical challenge than that. Thank you, John. Alexander. And so I'm wearing pink, identifying with those who are wearing pink around the country this month on breast cancer awareness. I am not convinced that Gary realizes Gary. I think sometimes that when the children of Israel were taken into captivity and put on the banks of the river in Babylon, that they lost their spirit. And when they lost their will and felt forsaken, they hung their harps on the willows. And that's like a musician hanging his or her instrument on the willow. You can't make music with your instrument hanging on the trees. A preacher hanging up his Bible on the willows and not reading it. A politician giving up on legislation and retiring prematurely. And the oppressors said to them, as an act to humiliate them, sing us one of the Lord's songs now. Sing now, sing now. There's power in maintaining the capacity to sing the Lord's song, even in strange lands. The other reason it was difficult to get it, I just got back from South Africa yesterday. I skied the Governor Mbeki election in Eastern Cape, the father of Thabo Mbeki, the last president of South Africa. And Nelson Mandela's cellmate for 24 years, Thabo Mbeki's father. But while there, a part of the basic itinerary was to take me to Chris Hunter's gravesite, shot down by the South African police, and see Biko's gravesite. And a place called Bishop where they shot down 8 in the massacre, just marching down the street. Another place where the Mazingas, Attorney Mazinga was shot down as an ANC leader. His wife took over there and assassinated her too. They had somehow learned to appreciate the power of unearned suffering and the blood of the innocent. And what the scripture suggests to us in Gary is in all of our going and getting, seeking and acquiring, remove not the ancient landmarks our mothers and fathers have set. There was once a freak in Greek mythology called Zeus. He was a freak because he was born full grown. He had no childhood memory, had not been through adolescence, didn't come from a mother or father. He had no frame of reference. He didn't appreciate the little stuff that makes life life. He was born full grown. We don't want to be like Zeus. Just happen to be in Gary today. No memory, no context, no history. You know, the state didn't build Genesis Center. This is not the state's vision. You know this is Richard Hatcher's vision. This place here. Really, we're talking about Selma to Gary. This is the first northern place Dr. King said his tent. We've been in Montgomery and Birmingham and Greensboro and Jackson, Mississippi, and Memphis. The question continues, can you take that movement north? Will nonviolence work? Will blacks in the north be civil enough to engage in a political process without destroying each other? And we know in relatively small one-horse towns, you can pull off a boycott. Selma, less than 10,000 people, you can have some kind of unity, but it can't happen in a northern industrial city where there are blacks and whites living, where there are social, racial, ethnic, labor dynamics. Gary is that place. Richard and Stokes elected at the same time, and Stokes' inauguration comes earlier. Was recognized as the first African-American mayor of a major city in the country's history. In the history of the country was Richard Hatcher, in the history of the whole country. We're in the fourth stage of our struggle. If I were writing a freedom symphony, I would argue that the fourth stage of the symphony. And I know you James Brown fans don't believe that. You don't think it's just 2 beats, but it's really 4. But with the first stage, Michelle, is slavery. Nothing mattered but ending slavery. 246 years, from 1619 to 1865, ain't roundabout. That's 246 specific years of us being the commodity exchange, on the commodity exchange. 246 years. Not a season, not 10 years, not a war. We were an object bigger as wealth that insurance companies, banks, and land combined was blacks as a trading piece of stock. Our children must know this, and their parents must know it. This is not an immigration policy. This is a slave policy. This is a trade policy. 246 years. The white people, through their religion, describe God in their own image. As their politics, as their science, had the goal to put us in the Constitution, not a rumor, as 3/5 of a human being, which meant by definition we were 3/5 less than, they were 7/5. So it's 3/5 sub people and super people. Taught in the house from mother's womb to tomb. Taught in church and school as pseudoscience. We inherit the legacy of Dr. Lance of that today. And to break the cycle of that, with the forces around the world rallying to end slavery, not just here. That Statue of Liberty that you see in the harbor in New Jersey called New York is a statue dedicated to the liberation of our people. If you go to the Seine River in France, you'll see a smaller statue of Liberty. But the abolitionists were marching in Europe to get America to end slavery. And when the war was won to end slavery and save the Union, they gave America a statue. That statue is not about welcoming folk at Ellis Island. It does that. It's a statue of liberty, of liberty. It's a gift to America from the abolitionists of France, congratulating America for ending slavery. It's a statue of liberty. Just like Thanksgiving is not an act of Congress, it is an executive order by Lincoln after we won the Civil War after Gettysburg. Lincoln thanked God for winning the battle at Gettysburg and ending slavery. That's a holiday that comes out of our struggle as well. A Memorial Day, after the troops came south and blacks joined the troops, the Union troops. They used to march around the grave site of Union soldiers once a year. It was a memorial. It was against the odds because the Confederates resisted and resented their doing it. But Memorial Day eventually became a memorial for all who died. It started out as blacks marching around the grave sites of Union soldiers, thanking them for coming south to end slavery. We're deep in this thing, y'all. Out of that lineage of slavery, 246 years. Freed not by Lincoln's executive order and speech, he Emancipation Proclamation would set us in motion because he armed us for the first time, armed slaves to pick up the rifles and join the army to fight the slave masters. You saw it in that movie, Glory. I'm going somewhere with this. The 13th Amendment, we got freedom, but without equality. Freedom without justice. Freedom without evening the playing field. Freedom. Free but to starve. Free but to be illiterate. Free but to be behind. And then they ganged up and started using these radical Christians called Klansmen with their burning crosses and their heaven-bound white robes. Most lynchings, as I hear them talking about radical Islamists, most lynchings took place on Sunday after church. They took away Emmett Till by night and killed him, but most lynchings, sometimes they would stop the church service and go and have a lynching party and come back and finish worshiping. That's how deep the sin-sick soul of the country was. That's what Dr. King's motto for ACC was to redeem the soul of America. Its soul was damaged by the mental retardation of racist sickness. And so after lynchings and killing Native Americans, it's one thing to be called a Cherokee, that's a tribe. Black Hawk, that's a tribe. But then to sell dead Indians, 10 to 12 on a wagon. So that became too heavy. So you cut off the skins, red skin, that was the red skins. In cowboy movies, they had Indians scapping the white people. In reality, they scapped to Indians, and you could get 500 scaps in a wagon as opposed to 50 bodies. It's all a part of our struggle to civilize our nation. The courts finally decided, the Supreme Court, politically supreme but not morally supreme, decided apartheid in 1896. It took us 58 years to overcome the second stage, to end Jim Crow. The second stage. If the first stage is to end legal slavery, y'all bear with me. If the second stage is to end legal Jim Crow, the third stage is the right to vote. The reason why Emmett Till and Medgar Evers' killers walked the streets 40 years after they'd been killed. They walked, and everybody knew who killed them. One juror said, I know that the guys who killed Emmett Till were wrong, but I could not imagine a white man going to jail for killing a nigger. So I know he was wrong, but I couldn't imagine that. It's stacking my imagination. Like one time I was talking with George Wallace, having prayer with him on his deathbed. And we talked, a very civil conversation, warm in his dying days, a good conversation. And so I said, George, I said, tell me, why did you turn the horses loose, and the dogs loose on the marches that Sunday? Yeah, I know you were going to raise that question, Jesse. I tell you what, I regret it, but let me tell you what happened. I did it for the best interest of the marchers. Now, wait a minute. So I did the marchers a favor. And he was as serious, early as he said, because on the other side of that bridge were some gangmen, some whites, some mobs. If I hadn't had them beat, it'd been worse on the other side. It never occurred to him to break up the mob. In his sick mind, in his most serious deathbed, trying to get to heaven mind, he could not even imagine the state troopers beating a white mob. And he was extreme. I know he was very serious. Talking about the depth of the sickness. The right to vote was not just for blacks. Sure, blacks could not vote, because the irony is that we put the slave masters in charge of the voting process, states' rights. That's why I wouldn't admit, because we put, after 240 years, you asked those who had been the masters to organize the process of voting. And for 100 years, it didn't happen. 760, but blacks couldn't vote. White women couldn't serve on juries to 67. 18-year-olds who were serving in Vietnam couldn't vote. College students couldn't vote on campus. You had to either had to vote or go home or vote by mail. They couldn't vote. You couldn't vote bilingually to 1975. You couldn't get proportionality until it came out of Hatch's mind in 1988, the basis of Barack Obama's victory in a mathematical sense. All this stuff, after we leave Selma, comes out of Gary. Not out of Atlanta, not out of New York, not out of Village. All this comes out of Gary. All right. And the vision of it comes out of Hatch's mind. All right. Because we used to meet. Hatch was getting ready to running, and he heard this guy was going to run and challenge the system up north. Dr. King was going to come in here and campaign for Hatchet. But the blacks who were attached to the white power structure were so attached until they attacked Dr. King for coming to have Hatchet. And to keep Dr. King from becoming embarrassed, he did not come to campaign for Hatchet. He did a robocall. The weekend before the election. He was able to campaign for Stokes in Cleveland, but could not come to here because of black jealousy and fear, and locked into the political machine. Y'all, I've been here for a while. We used to sit around. Hatchet did not decide not to just become a local mayor, but to become a national mayor. We sat in Dr. T.R.M. Howard's house. Dr. T.R.M. Howard, who was taken out of Mississippi in a casket as if he were dead to escape being killed. Percy Sutton. Dave Dingus became mayor of New York City. Lieutenant Governor Brown from Colorado. Carl Stokes. We sat around planning to run a black for president in '72. While thinking about doing it and tying it in with the convention, doing something audacious, Shirley Chisholm decided to run out of New York, not connected to our base, so much so she would not come to the Gary Convention, which affected her campaign substantially. Because she ran, but not in the rhythm of our struggle and its leadership. The most prominent African-American leader at that time was Richard Hatcher. No one else had a town. Yeah, congressional district here and there, state, some, this, that. No one else had a city that could host a convention. You couldn't have had this convention in Annapolis. Right. You couldn't have had it in Memphis or Atlanta. This was before Maynard Jackson. You couldn't have had it in Detroit. This was before Coleman Young. He came to the convention. This is before Tom Bradley. He was in L.A. This is before Willie Brown in San Francisco. This is before Harold Washington in Chicago. The most prominent spokesman identifying our vision was Richard Hatcher. By far, we sat around his footsteps, right his footsteps. I was even blessed to take that. I thought I had so blind. I followed him one Sunday all the way down to Boonesville, Missouri. You'd have to do something. Google you can't put that GPS. You can't GPS and find Boone. That's where Hatcher found roof down in Booneville. So I went down there. It took us 9 hours to drive from here to Booneville, Missouri. And I married Hatcher and Ruth, and they're still together. I'm proud of myself. But the whole idea of trying to do something different, put all these tribes together, this comes from Hatcher's mind. We have the right to vote. Dr. King made this case. He said, well, if we have public accommodations, well, obviously, right to vote, there's too much poverty. Poverty is a weapon of mass destruction. Poverty limits growth. It limits the mind. It squeezes the spirit. It takes away your sense of confidence. We must not have a populist campaign. Moving toward the fourth stage. You can get out of slavery, out of Jim Crow, out of need for the right to vote, but starved to death. They should have access to capital, industry, technology, say access, capital, industry, technology, and deal flow. What does it matter if you got land and can't borrow money to build on it? When Hatcher won, it was the highest moment of our political life. We just flocked together. The hotel across the street from City Hall. We had us a city. This was our landing base. Went a step further. With the help of Blue Drinkett and Rudy and all that group coming into the process. We couldn't have it here. There was no Genesis. We had the West Side High, by the way, in the past. We didn't have no Genesis. Couldn't have had this here tonight. We had to go out to Maryland, which we boycotted. Because when Hatcher won, two things happened to sink the city. One, whites of Ben and Gary formed a new city out of a pasture called Merrillville. Merrillville was a pasture. And white people left Gary, and the steel mill left the country. Steel went to Japan, white folk went to Merrillville. So you lose your industrial base and your tax base. Nothing was wrong with us, Earlene. The structure left us in the hole of the donut. That was some people like Ed Sadlowski, some labor guys who stuck it out, kept fighting. For the most part, they took a cornfield out here. And that, what they call it, holidays, something where they sing and dance, what they call it? Yeah, all that was outside of Gary. That would have been inside Gary ordinarily. All that entertainment, all them shoppers, all that, and the tax base went there. A honeybee, not to have a brain. A brainless honeybee, know that you have to feed the flower you rob, but the flower will die. Those who got the nectar from Gary sold their pollen in Melville. And the flower died. And we were trapped in that hole. To survive the trauma of that, someone said, well, violence in Gary. Well, let me tell you something. One writer said that where that is darkness, there will be crime. Right. But he who creates the darkness creates the crime. That's right. Stop. You lose your tax base, your industrial base, your investment base. If someone is shot in Gary, they have to go to Chicago for a trauma unit. There's no trauma unit in northern Indiana. They have to go to Chicago by helicopter. The Christ on 95th Street West. This is not inside Chicago city limits. So they take away the banks and the trauma units and the residents and the tax base. You're trying to make a biscuit rise without yeast. Yeah. A kind of cultural, I want y'all to bear with me because I'm not sure Gary understands Gary. At this convention, Baraka, Leroy Jones was helped to preside. It was a lot of tension in that, but we were coming together, many of us for the first time. His son is now mayor of Newark. Coleman Young was here. He was wrestling on. He left, but we caught up with him and he won Detroit. Maxine Waters was here. Percy Sutton was here. Al Sharpton was here, 12-year-old kid. All that happened in Gary, not Atlanta, not Memphis, not New York, not Chicago, because it's the only place that can host us. Well, the men with the vision to see us as an asset, not a threat. Because there's rebellion against the third stage, we're still fighting political fights that should be behind us. It should be behind us. You have 22 states now, including this one, in a civil war rebellion against Barack Obama. Not a civil rights rebellion, a civil war rebellion. This division is not of his making. He reached out to the point of being embarrassed. South Carolina, 1/4 of the states is in poverty. They reject $12 billion in Medicaid money. The governor of Texas talking about we're going to get some fences to lock folk out the country who got Ebola. Our hospitals can't handle it. He turns down $100 billion in Medicaid money. The Confederacy has risen up again from Virginia around to Texas to all Republican legislatures, and 10 more, including this one, who will turn away money to choose their religion, their ideology, the Confederacy, over resources, which is a contradiction. When Wallace blocked the school door and black and white people couldn't go to school together, he was called racist. When governors block healthcare doors, we call them conservative. They're no more racist. They play word games, Dr. Lyon, you know. Black people lie, white folks prevaricate. Black folks steal, white folks embezzle. You know, just play word games, you know, make us feel bad about ourselves. But what actually did the effect was to go outside the Democratic Party, and they rebelled against it. The blacks of the Democratic Party rebelled against it. They're called the Banana Machine. We got one party with two names. Neither party supported the march from Selma to Montgomery. Neither Democrat nor Republican put up a dime for the march from Selma to Montgomery. Not a dime. All right. All support the convention of Gary. All my campaign. I came in with the worst thing ever happened. Hatcher got it. He was my chairman. They got it. What does it mean? Well, what this was divisive was expansive. Well, two things happened. Three things. One, the psychology that we can't run, we killed that one. I talked to President Barack one night and he said, you know, I was at Columbia when you were debating, and at the debate, I watched you in Hart and Mondale debate and watched how you handled them, and I said, this thing can happen. Well, that was the whole idea of planting seeds for an oncoming generation. Somebody asked, Jesse, are you preparing people to come after you? Yeah, Barack, he's one of them that came. Sharpton, he was 12 years old at the Gary Convention. He was here. That's the preparation. The new ones you're looking for, that's what they are. They came back out of Gary too. Out of Gary. Holy ground. We believe we could become mayor when we left Gary. I mean, the biggest election we held in America after a 67 Hatcher was Harold Washington in 83. Harold became mayor. Harold was the most celebrated mayor in America. That came out of Gary too. Obama was the most attacked president since Abraham Lincoln. The Confederacy. We don't want your Medicaid money. Oh, we don't want federal money. You mean you got 40% of your state budget is federal? You don't want federal money? Your military bases is federal money? You don't want military bases? You mean your federal money for bridges and roads? You don't want federal money? No, we don't want it for poor people. And if they think it'll hurt black people, listen, white people be unintended consequences. You mean that they will now make the jail industrial complex for profit? That in South Carolina, that 75% of those in prison are African American and they do prison labor. The two companies make $1.5 billion a year off of prison collect telephone calls. You mean in Georgia they're building companies on the compound of the jail. They make products on the compound of the jail. Lavelle, they make it on the jail. You mean that one company in South Carolina, Somerville, would have 1,200 workers making $18 an hour. They fired 600, replaced them with 600 prisoners making $3 a day, and half of that money go to rent the jail cell and half of the uniform? Today! You mean Mississippi is against federal money and 52% of its state budget is federal? That's Confederacy. That ain't, you can't get along with them. Rock can't get along. You can't get along with no Confederate. But they mean to destroy us. They'd rather, I was in Mississippi Trent Locke School. Speaking of Ole Miss, and all the black football players got number one there. The boys pick cotton balls and picking footballs out there doing the thing. And so it was hot. It was sweaty hot. I took the coat off and they had the windows up and blowing hot air. And Trent like, Jesse, I heard you going to my hometown. You either been in Mississippi, I said, I'm going. But I want you to go by something we're proud of. We got a first-class jail down there. It has green grass, has flowers, and they're teaching them how to be cooks. He was serious as hell. He was serious as hell. I went by there too. And they was straightened up, doing all. So I got to school and it was hot, very hot. And so I said, why would you have the number one senator, the president of the Senate, and you have a school without internet and without air conditioning? Because that doesn't make sense. You had number one on the top and you're number one on the bottom. So I knew I'd hit home run. I'd hit something they couldn't hit back. So finally stood up by the president and said, Reverend, I think I know why you do that. What it really is that, see, if them union folks in Washington take over our schools, I'd rather say he in sweat into a pub than have them take over our schools. Confederate Union. When President Kennedy came in and Johnson got the Voting Rights Act, George Wallace, all them were Democrats. Jefferson Davis Democrats became Reagan Goldwater Republicans. And Lincoln Republicans became Kennedy Johnson King Democrats. They changed parties but not their character. So they fight jobs, health care, education. Let y'all go in just a minute. What do we need today? We need a Gary. You cannot rebuild Gary on conventional bank loans. They're going to argue, they'll never argue race, but they're going to argue you can't do it because it's not feasible to invest there. You mean with these thousands of people here who want to buy a house, you cannot create a plan for reconstruction? What is the Marshall Plan in Europe? It is 50-year loans at 2% government secured, not conventional rate loans. You cannot rebuild Gary off of banks that abandoned you. The abandoned are not going to come back. And guess what? Once they got caught with the home foreclosure scam, we built the bank on a 2-page proposal. Not all you guys fill out all the papers get to be on welfare. You got a 2-page document requesting the money to bail out the banks, not linked to lending or the reinvestment, not a single one charged with a crime. Not a single man charged with a crime. They sunk the middle class into poverty. They took our houses. We ain't got attitude about it. We were just one thing worse than slavery, so just to it. Those who would be free must be permanently maladjusted. You must have a dignity fit every now and then. You cannot let death dull your consciousness. We need out of this White House an urban reconstruction plan. The bank told us last night at the King Breakfast in Chicago, we can't lend y'all money where we took the houses. They say they can't do it because they changed the regulations so that they cannot lend where they got run out of. It's another way of saying they who robbed us. Now watch this. They the lawsuit, so they targeted black and brown homes with subprime lending, predatory lending, and lack of oversight. They took our houses. And y'all know about what foreclosed house, raise your hand. You know somebody with a foreclosed house. You know somebody with that. Yeah, they took them. We bailed them out. Now the money that they got in the fine did not go back to folks who got locked out. It went to the General Treasury to fight ISIS. Is. Reconstruction. Healthcare system. Why don't you have to leave Gary, Indiana and go to Illinois for a trauma unit? Have we adjusted to that? I mean, suppose 500 people marched from Gary to the hospital, as in 7 Montgomery. It's shorter from here to Chicago than it is from 7 Montgomery. So why did Negroes and white folks march in the street? Say they don't have a trauma unit in Northern Indiana. It would shake up the whole world. What? It would shake up the whole world. Yeah. When 500 people marching across that bridge, why are they marching? We want a trauma unit in Northern Indiana. And guess what? Some white folks may march with you, some may not, but all of them they pulling for you because everybody needs it. At the end of the day, this thing is not so much about races, it's about resources. Why do people react to us so much? Because of these walls. We changed America for the better. You put down 2 seeds of the same strength and you put a wall between them and you water both of them. And one grows tall with multiples of fruit and one stays short and stubby. The shorter one is not lesser, the taller one is not better. When the wall comes down, there's something called photosynthesis. The one that has the light grows, the one in the dark doesn't. We're living in the shadow. There's nothing wrong with us. Something wrong with this system. We cannot get a bank here. And then to have the political power and don't have newspaper appraisal power means somebody who don't necessarily like you judging you every day. That's not part about the thing. Do you know that? Say appraisal power. Appraisal power trumps political. And the people who don't live in your neighborhood, who don't have a very high opinion of you, they write headlines about you every day and determine how people see you. Now, let me put this thing another way. You buy your spouse, spice, whatever your situation is, a very valuable ring, $50,000. You know you're happy and broke, but you did what your heart said. Let's do it. And she happy, ring flash on her finger. And somebody said, "Look, man, but somebody might steal that ring or might cut the finger off. If I were you, I would get that ring insured before you lose it or stole it." You take the ring downtown, and somebody take one eye and say, "I see a flaw. It's worth $25. No, I paid $50. Here's my receipt." When you get through cursing, you'll be ensured that the appraised value, there's power in the appraisal. Or I mean, say, this is rare. It's worth $100,000. It will be ensured that the appraised value. What do you think about the mayor of Gary? Check with the editorial board. What do you think about, does Gary have talent? Check with the writers. Who are the appraisers of what you're doing? Who determine how you look at each other? Do you look at each other through a keyhole or through a door? Come on, man. That's why the crusade is important. We must have the power to praise ourselves. Why are we so good in football, basketball, and baseball? It's hard to be one of the best in the world when the Bears play or whomever they're going to play. And the Kansas City plays San Francisco. How are we the best at in the world what's so hard to do? When our guys play basketball, take them to Japan, take them all to Brazil. How are we the best at what's so hard to do? Everybody wants to be a pro basketball player. They can dribble a little. All pro football player. Say whenever, no matter our circumstance. Broken home, poverty, whenever the playing field is even and the rules are public and the goals are clear and the referee is fair and the score is transparent, we can make it. We cannot borrow our share of money because it's subjective. We're not running for governor of Indiana because when there's an unwritten law, you know you can't win because the hostility never called that. It's called, I got a better choice. So my challenge tonight is Reverend Ferguson. Ferguson is a metaphor for abandoned urban America. Ferguson is having to be Ferguson. God can do big things in small towns. I challenge y'all tonight to assess why Gary is on the line, why you're in the hole, who dug the hole, who created darkness. I challenge you to show me who else in this town ever built a living monument. To think about going to Mandela's graveyard the other day and going to the Steve Biko and all that was to think that the South Africans cherish the frame of reference. The Bible says, remove not the ancient landmarks. Don't run over them. Don't get another one. Run. When I was a little boy growing up in South Carolina, down in the old country, our family became middle class in 1956. We got a 1948 Hudson, had our own car. 56 Hudson, 1956 Hudson, 1948 Hudson, 1956, had our own car. Every so we go out and get 5 gallons of gas for $1. Spur gas and some glasses. What do you call them? Some of y'all talk to me. You know, when you get the glasses and yeah, you know what you're talking about. Yeah, coupons. You understand? I'm trying to get y'all to come with me. And so Grandma said, I tell y'all, what I want you to do, she said, y'all been going. We couldn't stop at the skating rink. We couldn't swim at the pool. So we go out to different places, go and see folks over in the home place, 10 miles away. And so Ruth, this grandma said, this is my son. I want us to go by the old home ground. She could not read, couldn't see well, had no GPS, nothing. She said, go down this road. We kept going down the road. I said, grandma must be lost. Just keep going. Kept going. This is the old story. We used to come up here and we would, every week, at the end of the season, but always owe more than we should owe. And that was where they used to barter. It's just that turn right here. We went down the road again. Didn't see no landmark, no lines or nothing. She said, right here. She said, get out and pull that grass back. She said, I got it. Got what, Grandma? She said, pull it back. We pulled it back. She said, that's a rock. Oh, I got it. Got what? She said, now, if this is the rock, don't go that way because it's mushy down there. Snakes down there. Don't go down that way. She said, because the pond where we got baptized is right up there. And they run down that way and they get mushy. That's where the snakes be. And bugs. And so that's where the church was that burned down. And the grandma then buried over behind that church. She couldn't read brown, she couldn't write. But once she got the landmark, once she got the anchor, once she got the frame, everything else made sense. Hatcher's an anchor. The first African-American mayor in the country's history of no white folks ever had to vote for black women before and get beat. We won this race. They didn't just give us Gary, we won Gary. And some white allies, some black allies, because he was trying to build a new city whose building maker was God. On this note, I leave. Remove not the ancient landmarks. If y'all in y'all's right mind, you'll have a major statue to hatch out there. In your right mind. I'm not sure what Genesis Center means. I know what Hatchet Center means. I know who built it. Y'all are named more off or less. That's who built it. That's whose idea was. That's whose administration. That's what people do. That's why you got all them different streets named after police and different kind of people in Chicago. Because they made the contribution on the block they stayed on. It seems to me it's a challenge to our own maturity. To our own judgment. Who else had to take the hits and to be threatened as mayor? Come on, man.